Have you ever ignored the warning signs your body was giving you? Convinced you could just push through a little longer? I know I have. But what if anxiety isn't the first thing we should pay attention to? What if the real question is, why didn't we listen to the red flags in the first place?
Hey you, welcome to Selfish Me. I'm Cam, a business psychologist and a proud late bloomer who finally stopped living by everyone else's rules. And this is your space to pause, reconnect, and build a life that feels true to you. Because putting yourself first isn't selfish, it's powerful.
Hey you! Today, I want to share what happened when my anxiety completely took over a couple weeks ago. I will share the CBT tool that helped me through it, but also the old belief I discovered that might have been the real reason I ignored the warning signs in the first place. Anxiety is something that has stayed with me since burnout. It's not a regular guest in my life anymore, more like an occasional visitor that drops every now and then. When it does, I've learned not to fear it. Instead, I try to see it as my mind and body sending me a message that something needs my attention. Sometimes I listen early enough. Other times, like a couple of weeks ago, I don't. But before we go into that, I want to share some of your responses to the question I asked at the end of last week's episode. And the question was, if you have ideas about what you would like this conversation to become, I would love to hear them. First of all, thank you. Every message, comment, and DM means so much to me. So I thought I would share a few of your responses here. Annie said that she would love to actually see me. So she would like the podcast to become a video podcast. And honestly, that's something I have been thinking about it for a while. But I'll be honest with you, it makes me a little bit nervous. So maybe one day, I'm not saying no. Then message from Jacinta. For me, podcasts are like masterclasses summarized. I get to learn so much in such a short time. Having guests makes the experience even more universal. I also find your episodes are quite short. Thank you so much for that message, Jacinta. For one, talking to myself for 45 minutes feels like a lot, if I'm being honest. But also, I want these episodes to fit into a walk, a commute, or a coffee break, something that is accessible when it comes to time. I really love what you said about podcasts feeling like a masterclass. And by the way, we do have a guest episode every month, usually in the last week of the month. Final message I will share today with you is from Mesita, giving listeners the opportunity to send in questions or ask for advice that you could answer on the podcast. I think that could make this conversation even more interactive. Wow, that sounds very interesting indeed. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your suggestions with me. I absolutely love them. And please keep sharing your ideas because this podcast is growing with you and I genuinely love hearing them from you. And it's so interesting to hear what you would like for this space to become. And as I promised you last week, at the end of today's conversation, I will share my reasons for moving to Kenya. Every time I tell someone I'm moving to Africa, I get exactly the same reaction. You are moving where? There's always this little moment of confusion on their face. And I'm not going to lie, I quite enjoy it. So, if you're curious about why I have decided to make such a big move after living in London for the past 18 years, stay with me until the end and I will tell you the story. Let's talk about what happened a couple of weeks ago. I've ended up taking a sick leave because my anxiety went through the roof. The thing is, I saw the red flags before it happened. And when I say red flags, I mean those little signals your body gives you before you become overwhelmed. Before I share mine, do you know yours? Do you know your red flags? Take a moment to reflect. Also, for context, the last couple of weeks before leaving London were intense for me. I just finished a really busy and successful Q2. I have been to Kenya for 2 weeks to sort out life admin before my move. Things like alien card, that name makes me smile, by the way, bank account, and flat viewings. I was packing my entire life when I got back. I got food poisoning, then I had incredibly painful period. I was on antibiotics, and on top of all of that, there was some difficult family news. Looking back, It's no surprise my nervous system was waving a giant red flag. So why didn't I stop? At the time, I genuinely believe I had a little bit more left in the tank. But when I reflected on it later, I wonder if something deeper was going on. For years, I've carried this belief that I can rest once everything on my to-do list is done. And once I am exhausted. The interesting thing is, I could have taken a day or two off just to pack. I could have asked for help. Did I? No. And it makes me wonder whether that old belief was quietly running the show. I don't know if it was the whole reason, but I think it played a part. And maybe that's a bigger lesson. Sometimes it's not the circumstances that keep us going when we should stop. It's the stories we have been telling ourselves for years. So, back to my red flags. The first one is irritation. Little things suddenly become really annoying. Things that normally wouldn't bother me, someone being 5 minutes late, or asking a simple yes or no question and getting a 5-minute backstory instead. The second one is that I can't focus. I will sit in front of my laptop knowing exactly what I need to do, but it's like my brain just can't connect the dots. Then my spelling becomes absolutely shocking. I once misspelled my own name in the email. Yes, my own name. Another red flag is that my brain simply won't switch off. I'm thinking about all the things I need to do before bed. Then I wake up feeling like my brain has been working all night, even though I've technically been asleep. When I wake up, my brain goes straight to the to-do list. So I knew I needed a break. I've promised myself that once I landed in Poland, I would figure out what kind of rest I actually need. But after I arrived, another difficult family situation came up. And honestly, it was the straw that broke the camel's back. I was going to bed feeling hopeless, and that's a massive red flag for me. The next morning, my anxiety had completely taken over. I was crying, my thoughts were racing, and for some reason, whenever my anxious brain starts catastrophizing, it always starts with work. It doesn't matter whether work caused anxiety or not. My brain immediately goes to, you can't do this job. You are going to lose your job. They are going to fire you. It's incredible how convincing those thoughts feel in the moment. In that moment, I have two choices. I can push through to prove my brain wrong, or I can take a step back. These days, I know myself well enough to recognize that when my anxiety reaches that level, pushing through isn't a sign of resilience, it's risky. Working in that state can damage my work, my personal brand, and even my relationships because I am simply not in the right headspace. So instead of trying to prove something to my anxious brain, I choose to look after myself first. And that's why I took sick leave. But I've also learned that time off on its own doesn't always calm my nervous system. If I don't actively help it move out of fight or flight, it can stay stuck there. So I reached for one of the tools I've learned years ago. It's called Cognitive Restructuring, and it's one of the core techniques used in cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT for short. It's one of the things that help me with catastrophizing. And catastrophizing is when your brain jumps to the worst possible outcome and treats it like it's already happening. The first step is simply noticing the thought. Mine was, I'm going to lose my job. They're going to fire me. Then I ask myself one simple question. What evidence do I actually have? Not what I feel, not what I'm afraid of. What evidence do I actually have? Well, work agreed to relocate me to Kenya. They were investing a huge amount of trust, time, and money in me. I received positive feedback on a project I recently led. My last one-to-one with my manager went really well. So none of that matched the story my anxious brain was telling me. That was enough for me to realize this wasn't reality, it was exhaustion. I have been through one stressful event after another without giving myself a chance to recover. Throughout my time off, whenever my brain whispered, but what if they do fire you? I will come back to the evidence. And sometimes I would ask myself a second question. What is the most likely outcome? Not the worst one, the most likely. And in this case, my most likely outcome could be that I have to take more time off before I feel ready to go back to work. But something else clicked for me while I was off and walking in the forest. I realized my brain always catastrophizes about work because my job represents safety to me, keeps a roof over my head and food on my table. And that's why my anxiety starts there. That insight didn't magically make the anxiety disappear, by the way, but it took away some of its power. It helped me respond instead of react. So when I was messaging my manager to tell him that I need time off, I actually told him to reason. And that was the right decision for me. If you decide to communicate something personal that is happening to you to your manager, that is your choice. You decide how much information you share and when and with who. The important thing is recognizing what you need in that moment. Now, I have stopped seeing anxiety as the enemy. Like I said at the beginning, I see it as an old visitor that comes and sees me. And when it does, it reminds me to slow down, to check in with myself, to ask what I have been carrying for too long. This time, I listen a little too late. So if your brain starts telling you crazy stories this week, pause for a moment and ask yourself, what evidence do I actually have? What's the most likely outcome here? Because anxiety is really good at writing fiction, but you don't have to believe every story your brain tells you. Now, before we finish, let me keep my promise and tell you why I am moving to Kenya. And this started with therapy. Because one of the biggest things therapy taught me was to pay attention to the moment when I feel most like myself. Over time, I've noticed some patterns. I am calmer when I'm surrounded by nature and close to the ocean. I am more creative when I am somewhere that's growing, changing, and full of possibility. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, well, everyone feels more relaxed on holiday. And you are right. But I am at the stage in my life where I want to make it part of my everyday life. When I traveled to Kenya for work, I realized it gave me everything I've been looking for: nature, ocean, a sense of possibility. So I decided to give it a go. The real question here is, what kind of environment helps your nervous system to feel calm, safe, and alive? Our environment shapes our brain more than we often realize. It influences how we think, how we feel, how creative we are, and how quickly our nervous system can move out of a survival mode and into a state of rest. And that's probably why I've always put so much care into every place I lived, including some of the shittest rooms I rented in London. I would decorate them, fill them with plants, and create a space that feels peaceful. Looking back, I don't think I was just decorating. I was creating an environment that helped my nervous system feel safe. So, what is one thing that you can add to your environment or change that will help you feel more safe, more calm? Okay, until next time, look after yourself and be kind to your brain.
Thank you so much for listening. It honestly means the world to me. If something from today's chat made you smile, think, or feel seen, share it. That's how our Selfish Me community grows. This podcast is about real voices and reminding each other that we are not alone. We are all figuring out how to do life our way, and you are doing better than you think.